Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Western Hippie Podcast. I'm your host, Michaela, here with Tank, Daisy, and Willie the Corgi today. So, per usual, if you hear paws in the background, it's probably a Corgi. Hopefully it's a Corgi, because if it's not, we've got paws that are unexpected in the house. And that's always, I'm not going to say a bad thing, but it's always an interesting thing. Luckily, where we live, we haven't had a ton of crazy animals come into our house. The craziest thing has been birds like coming through the chimney, but you see videos of people who live in Florida or even in South America or Central America, and they just have Australia have the most random things come into their house. And it's not quite so random here. I feel like I've kind of thought like the reason, people who live and are from the Pacific Northwest can kind of be known to be sissies. And I think it's because our environment is actually pretty chill. Like the rain is annoying. And yes, we've actually had some flooding up here this year in 2025, but it's not like dangerous for the most part. And our wild animals, other than baby bears, but bears, unless they have cubs, are usually, we have black bears up here, usually pretty friendly. So I would actually argue maybe cougars are probably the most dangerous, just because cougars don't have to have cubs to be dangerous, are kind of our craziest things around here. But anyway, that's another theory for another day. I actually feel kind of awkward because the last 6 months or so that I've been recording episodes for this show and my other show, and also just being on Zoom calls, I always have my camera on. I don't have my camera on today for one, internet streaming services. I'm home for the holidays and the internet's not quite as good here. And two, not that it's not quite as good because it's actually the same internet service, but there's more things using the internet here. And then also, I just don't feel like being on camera today given the topic. So with that, let's just transition into the topic of navigating grief when our animals cross over the Rainbow Bridge. And unfortunately, the reason why I'm recording this episode, the reason I had the inspiration, for lack of a better term, if you will, for this episode is because one of my animals has crossed over the Rainbow Bridge. One of my horses crossed over the Rainbow Bridge on December 13th. And I don't really know how many days ago that's been now. And it's been tough. It's been really tough. And something that I noticed just as I'm navigating this grief is how many people don't know what to do with grief. And so I really felt compelled to make this episode because, as most of you know, I have been doing emotional release techniques for the last, it'll be 4 years in March. And the upside of the situation that I'm currently walking through is I do have a ton of emotional regulation tools in my tool belt now. So navigating this grief versus grief, in the past, we've had animals my whole life. So this is not my first round of navigation with our animals crossing over the Rainbow Bridge. So I thought, you know what, I'll get on here, tell you what I'm doing, because there are a lot of people who just don't know what to do with grief because, again, we're not taught. It's a really taboo conversation in our culture. And the problem is most of the things we're told to do with grief actually suppresses grief. And when we suppress emotions, this is when you would call emotions trapped. So when we suppress emotions, they get trapped, which creates trapped emotions, and trapped emotions will lead to depression, anxiety, physical ailments in the body, other mental illnesses. I have worked with people their shoulder pain was grief, lung issues, asthma can be contributed to trapped emotions of grief. And so because I've been doing this work for so long, I know that I need to handle it right now, so I don't have to handle it in 5, 6, 10 years, 20 years as asthma or as back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, whatever it is. Like, I am doing my best to handle all the grief now and not suppressing it so it doesn't become a trapped emotion, which manifests into some kind of physical ailment. And again, I believe people are really well-meaning. I believe they have really, really good intentions. And if you don't understand that these trapped emotions manifest physically, someone wouldn't understand that suppressing the grief would create these things. And that's why I felt so compelled and called to talk about this. So, Yeah, I was just pausing for a moment because I thought I was going to do like a little tribute episode to my horse, but actually I'm going to just do that separately because I think I'm going to make a YouTube video to go with it. But just a little background. I've had this horse since I was 16 years old. I turned 16 on September 13th of, believe it was 2011. And then I went and looked at him September 17th, 2011. And I believe we paid for him and then picked him up like October 1st or 2nd, I believe. So I'm 30 now, so 14 years ago. And this horse was really the horse that made all my dreams come true, especially in high school. We've had horses my whole life, but I hadn't really found my thing. Like my sister had got really into barrel racing, and I had done reining with a horse trainer who, if you've listened to the show for a while, know this is the horse trainer that I experienced sexual assault with. So really got out of reining, tried the barrel racing, just didn't really love it, and found cutting. And so cutting, if you don't know, I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you're an animal person, but you may not necessarily be a horse person. There's a herd of cows and you cut, meaning you separate a single cow from the herd. And then once you have that cow out, you actually set your hand down and the horse is taught to work with your hand down. And the goal is to not let the cow get back to the herd. And it's a little more technical than that, but that's just kind of the over view of it. Well, ironically enough, I actually wanted to get back into reining. When I found this barn, I was up driving and passed a barn up, like, if you could cut across the forest, it would probably only be a mile, but because you have from where I grew up, but because you have to kind of go around, it's probably 2-3 miles from where I grew up. And I go by this barn and they had like a reining sign out there, like, not a reining sign, but they had a metal outline of a horse, and it was a horse in a reining position. So I just assumed they did reining. I didn't know at the time that the barn owner had previously done reining and just kept the sign up, and then they had gotten to cutting. And so when I went there, I called to see if they needed any help around the barn, and the trainer was honest. She's like, I don't really have any paid positions open. I'm like, I don't care. I just want to get experience. And she's like, if I get to a point, I'll pay you whatever. But she's like, we don't do reining, we do cutting. And for me at the time, I was like, oh, that's even better. I've always wanted to try cutting, performance horses, like all that stuff out. So anyway, end up going up to work there, loved it, started riding one of the barn owner's horses. She had passed away. And then I started riding one of the trainer's horses, and then find my horse that just crossed over the Rainbow Bridge. His name's Capone. We find Capone, and the rest is history, as they would say. And from there, like, I just had all these dreams about showing and winning buckles and winning scholarships. And then Capone had helped me, make all of those dreams come true. So, and there's just animals where there's animals that, and I don't know how to explain it better, but if you have animals, you'll understand exactly what I'm about to say. You have animals that are here to be like just animals. And then you have animals that are very much like your soul animals. And Capone was very much one of my soul animals. We just got each other. I mean, so many people told me all of these terrible things about this horse, about his attitude, about what he would do in the show pen. Never did any of that to me in the show pen. I have a bunch of theories about that, but was just a horse. Like, I got him and he got me. Like, when your whole life you just feel so misunderstood, and then you meet a person who like sees you for who you are and kind of not who other people have made you out to be. Like, this horse and I had that connection. Like, everyone had made him out to be this jerk, not everyone, like the people I had got him from, really helped to rehab him and really brought this horse back to a baseline where he could like love and trust again. Cause prior to that, he was not in good situations. So they got him, but I do feel like it was different with him and me, because, we'll talk and they'll make comments about him, and I'm just like, man, like, you didn't see that. Like, you didn't see that his attitude was actually a protest, right? And I always had seen that his attitude was never just random. It was never just because he was bored or he felt like it. Like, he always had a reason behind his attitude and his protest, if you will. And so I just always have felt like him and I had got each other on that level. And so And even the way he passed away, which I'm not going to talk about yet, it was just, even in that moment, like the way that it went, I just felt like his soul was just teaching me other lessons. Like even in his final moments, the way that he was there for me and that I was there for him, it is a connection and experience with an animal I'd never had before. So it's been very tough. It's been very tough. And being home from the holidays was kind of weird because like I'm not going out to feed him. And so there's a part of my brain that's like, oh, when I go back, like he'll be, and it's like, no, Michaela, he's not. It's been very weird. So anyway, around Christmas time, like, you know, people will say like, how are you doing? And then my cousins, because my little cousin actually ended up riding Capone after like I'd gone off to college and was just not riding as much, doing other things. My younger cousin ended up riding him, and they made me an album of all the stuff that they had did together. And of course I had started crying. And again, well-meaning intentions, but a lot of the advice that I have been receiving is just remember the good times. Like you have to be grateful for all of these things. And I'm just not there yet. Like I am very grateful I had a horse like him. I'm very thankful for like everything that horse has done for me. But as far as being thankful that he is not here anymore, yeah, I'm not there yet. And this is what I really want to hit like home on today is that's okay. You don't have to be there yet. I don't have to be there yet, because this is the thing we want to feel and not suppress so that it doesn't become trapped and manifest as other physical ailments. So I'm not forcing myself to be grateful. I'm not forcing myself to like be okay. I'm actually just allowing myself to not be okay. And so this is what's going to lead into the second part of this episode is, how do we allow ourselves to not be okay? Because I actually think with our culture and with our current circumstances around grief, I think it's very uncomfortable, not just for us, but for other people, for us to not be okay. Like we're constantly like, and you know, the metaphor that's coming to me, which is really interesting. It's like, you know, if you have a campfire, we just let it burn. We don't panic about like, oh, it's going to spread into a forest. Like, obviously it could. But if you're sitting there, you're doing things smartly, like you just let the fire burn, right? You don't try to put it out. And yet when it comes to grief, when that spark starts, it's like we try to put it out right away. Like, oh my God, this is going to become a forest fire. But actually it's the opposite. When you let it burn, you just let it burn out naturally. Like, it'll actually completely go away. It's when we suppress and trap it that this grief actually takes more control of our lives, because especially if it traps like in the heart, you're never going to fully open your heart again, right? And so it's actually allowing the burning and letting it go out naturally. That's actually how we don't allow ourselves to get controlled by this grief, contrary you know what I mean, to popular belief. So, how am I doing this? I will be completely honest with you. Right now, my biggest thing is I'm being aware. So we all have what I call our go-to protective mechanism. So it might be food, it might be alcohol, it might be drugs, it might be the gym. We don't talk about that a lot. It actually might be God. There's a lot of people that use church and God as their escape mechanism. And so I just want you to become aware is like, what is your go-to, what I would call protective mechanism? You can call it escape mechanism. I have various ways. Like for me, I'm just been becoming aware of like, when am I endlessly doom scrolling? Like when have I think I've only been on my phone 20 minutes and it's turned into a couple of hours. So I'm just trying to be aware of, okay, when am I numbing? Okay. So again, as I've said, the last couple weeks, it's been with my phone. Okay. So instead of, I'm not beating myself up about it, this is really, really important, because what we always want to remember is, and this is what I've been saying to myself, like, oh, my body's just trying to protect me. It's okay. Thank you for trying to protect me. I don't need you to protect me this way anymore. I actually really need to feel this. And that's the best form of protection, because this part of our body, this part of our psyche, that's all it's trying to do is trying to protect us in whichever way it learned how to protect us in our childhood. And part of this awareness is just learning how to come back and learning how to rewire this thing. So again, I'm aware that my go-to protective mechanisms is going to be something to do with numbing. I'm like, okay, so what am I using to numb in this situation? As of right now, it's been my phone. And then the second thing I've caught myself doing, which I actually, I talk about it, I believe, in my MDMA therapy episode. So if you haven't listened to those, I highly recommend going back and listening to those. But just kind of a brief overview here. I have not used binge eating as a coping mechanism since my MDMA sessions. And that's one thing. I wouldn't say I've been full blown going into binge eating, but what I have been doing is if I have an uncomfortable emotion coming up, or if I just need to sit and I'm feeling uncomfortable or I'm feeling guilty for just sitting, because work is another thing I will actually escape into. I'll go into workaholic mode, which is another form of escapism that, again, I don't think our culture likes to talk about, because like the work, gym, and church is stuff that's all praised in our culture. And yet so many of us use them for escape mechanisms. So work is another thing I'll escape into. But I promised myself I would take 2 weeks off, and which I'm recording this, but I don't really consider this work. And this was something I felt like I really needed to do today. But so if I just want to sit on the couch, kind of watch a movie, I'll start feeling guilty. And so then I'll go grab food, because for some reason I don't feel as guilty if I'm eating and sitting, ? I'll figure that out at some point. I actually do kind of know why, but, so that is something that when I catch myself doing these things, whether it's wanting to dive into work and avoid what I'm feeling, whether it's wanting to sit on the couch and eat to avoid feeling the guilt or whatever that is, or if it's getting on my phone, when I catch myself doing these things, again, I'm just repeating to myself that thank you for trying to protect me. I really appreciate, to my body, to my psyche, whatever. I really appreciate you trying to protect me. I actually don't need protected like this anymore. What I really need to do is feel these feelings, because that's going to be the best form of protection going forward, is allowing myself to feel these things, and just really thanking myself, because everything our body does, everything our psyche does, always started with a good intent. And actually, this is something I ironically enough learned from the horses in Capone, when we go in, like with his attitude, it would have been really easy for me to like just get as upset as everybody else. And what he really taught me is we really do have a reason for doing anything. Oh, it's like, I don't like the bit. I didn't like the way you asked me that. It's not that I won't do it. It's that I didn't like and it's like, they're living beings too. They're completely allowed to protest. But we have, again, I'll go off on tangents with our culture. But again, we have this really thing in our culture where it's like, we honor obedience and not intelligence, or not expression, or whatever that is. And so I always wanted to honor his expression, because in the cutting horse industry, the horses that do the best are always the horses that are allowed to be the most expressive. Well, how do you allow them to be expressive? You don't squander and squash their creativity. And so we are the same way. Horses are actually in theta brain state, which our subconscious mind, before we have our prefrontal cortex, it starts when we're second trimester in the womb, and then we won't get our prefrontal cortex until the ages between 7 and 8, kind of depending on where someone's brain development is. And so until we get that prefrontal cortex, we're constantly in theta. So this brain state that horses are in all the time is the state that we have available to us, but it's also the state when all of our beliefs, rules, and values were formed. And unless we go back and rewire these things, yes, this part of our brain is controlling us. And yes, that is also why when people get triggered, they act like they're 7 and 8 years old. So how we approach horses, and when we really figure out the formula to best approach horses, that is how we best approach. And I don't know, to be honest with you, it might be dogs too. I don't know enough about dogs. I have dogs. I love dogs. I introduced my dogs. My dog is, I don't even know how to describe my dog. He's my kid. I totally am the dog mom I said I would never be. I take my dog everywhere. With dogs, I know a lot about health stuff, but as far as dog training goes, my only rules with my dogs is you come when you're called. That is literally the only rule that I have. So as far as like dogs training and how dogs are, I know nothing. I don't really know how I taught my dog how to come other than food, and he would get in trouble if he didn't. But, so I can't speak to dogs. I can only speak to horses, where I actually do have experience in the training process. And so what I found is the best way we can approach horses is the best way we can approach ourselves. And so one of my favorite sayings or beliefs is there's only one thing that really matters when it comes to like reaching our goals. And that is whatever we're doing, is that productive towards our goals or is it counterproductive towards our goals? And so when it comes to this emotional work, when it comes to training horses, I have found that curiosity is always more productive than criticism or judgment. And so again, how we want to start approaching ourselves is, especially with these protective mechanisms, is curiosity, because when that softness is there, when we don't go into fight or flight, that's when we can start to rewire the brain. But what a lot of us do is we start beating ourselves up, or we start beating that horse up, and then the body goes into fight or flight, and we cannot rewire from fight or flight. And so we don't want to put ourselves back into fight or flight. And that's where curiosity comes in, because it won't put the body into fight or flight, and yet it still allows us to address and solve the issue. So find the protective mechanism, and then when you become aware that you're doing it, I want you to think yourself and get curious and see if there's another way you can support yourself through it. So like I went and wrote a poem this morning, and that's actually a good segue. I keep giving myself these segues unintentionally, but thank you, Michaela, for giving me these segues. The next segue is finding your way to transmute the grief and feel the grief in a healthy way. And so for me, and I believe this will be true for everyone, what the problem is we have a very narrow way of thinking about creativity. And when I say we, I mean our culture. So in our culture, when we say creative things, people automatically assume like writing, painting, art, singing, dancing, whatever. Chase Jarvis is the one that opened my perspective on it, and he has a book called Creative Calling. I actually have not read the book. I just listened to his podcast tour when he was promoting the book, because sometimes if I get the philosophy and the thing the person's trying to like nail and like give to the world, I don't really need to read all the stuff around it. There's a lot of people that really like Angela Duckworth's book, Grit. I was like, I get the point. Grit is more important than talent. Copy. I don't need to read all the science and data behind it. I just don't. And I felt the same way with Chase's book. I loved his purpose. I loved just listening to him talk about it. I didn't need to read the book. If you're into books, I do recommend that. If you're like me, go just listen, search in podcast or YouTube, like Chase Jarvis creativity, and you'll find something about him talking about it. But he talked about creativity with a big C and creativity with like a little c. I don't necessarily love that, because I just don't, but I love his point, and I love his premise, and I love his purpose, because an architect might not consider themselves creative because they can't draw or they can't paint or whatever, but they had to create a bridge. They had to create a building. It's still a form of creation. Our culture just in general doesn't consider those things creative. If you are an interior designer, you had to create a look for that room. We'll go to horses. If you are a horse trainer, you had to create a protocol. You had to create a style. And so all of these things, if you are making anything, it is a form of creation. And so for me, I do writing, graphic design, and actually right now with AI, like making visuals of like my horse as an angel, ironically enough, has been very, very helpful for me, of just diving into the creativity, finding a style, kind of bringing these images to life the way I'm seeing in my head has been very helpful, because I'm feeling the emotions as I'm doing it. I'm letting myself cry. I'm letting myself be mad. I am letting myself be in disbelief of like, I can't believe this horse is not here anymore. Like I go into moments where I just kind of freeze, and I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to go back and like see him in his pen. And I just go into disbelief. And so then kind of bringing myself back to the present moment, I do, like, I've always prayed and like felt the animals energetically, asking him, his energy just to come in, visualizing myself giving him a hug as I'm creating this art has been very, very helpful for me. So that right now is really I did book a session. I've had 2 sessions with my mentor who taught me the emotional release techniques. I've had 2 sessions with her back to back, because I also wanted that support and love from a friend. She is my mentor, but she is my friend as well. From someone who also does the emotional work and is not gonna encourage me to just avoid or suppress the grief. So those are really the things that I am doing right now. I am aware of my protective mechanisms. If you're not, become aware of them when, or just get curious about them when you go to those, because if like me, they're most likely still your default. We just want to become aware and thank ourselves when we're doing it of, oh my gosh, thank you so much for protecting me. I actually don't need this form of protection anymore. What I need to do is feel these feelings. That's the best form of protection. What do I need to do instead? Again, today for me, I went and wrote a poem. I'm now creating this podcast. This was something that was really important to me. Again, feeling like this is something, if I didn't have the tools that I have, I would want to know these things. Of actually how to handle the grief and not just suppress the grief, and then finding your form of art, your creativity, whether that maybe you go create a cross, maybe you go create a mural, maybe you are more into art. And one of the things that you can look, if you're someone who has considered yourself to not be creative because of our culture's definition of creativity, think about what you enjoyed doing as a child. And that is your form of creativity. So maybe, did you like painting the most? Did you like drawing the most? Did you, if you liked going outside and playing with rocks, maybe you need to create a rock garden for your animal. But something that you can do with your hands that is going to, and how I like to visualize it is like my heart, like the energy of my heart coming down through my hands. It's like, what does my heart need to say through my hands? And that's like the energy that you want to bring to whatever this is. Maybe you just need to create, you go find your favorite photos, you create an album. Maybe you go print these photos out and you create just a little wall in your house, or maybe you go buy like a little hut and you create like a mural in your house of your pets, like maybe all your pets that have crossed over the Rainbow Bridge, and you have this like memoriam for them. Maybe you're like, I'm not really into writing, but I love poetry and I love words. Maybe you go find a poem that somebody else has wrote and then you print that out and you put that in the mural. Like, there is no right or wrong way to do this, but something that's going to allow you to feel these emotions and yet make something beautiful out of something really hard and really, really hard. That's really the only word I have for that. And then support. One of the there's three components that a trauma will manifest into a physical ailment. And one of those components is isolation. And so don't go through this alone. Reach out, talk to somebody, talk to a friend. And even if maybe you lost a pet 5-6 years ago and you're listening to this and you're not over it yet, think of someone you could call and just say, like, I lost my cat 5-6 years ago, and yet I still look for that damn cat in this corner of the room. I still look for the cat. And I always say, like, when if you don't know my sense of humor, I feel like I need to preface this a little bit. When I like love something and I'm hurting, anger is my default. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. If you've watched E.T., most people probably have. I had not watched E.T. till a year ago. So if you have not watched E.T. and you don't want a spoiler alert, I'd probably press the 15-second or 30-second go over what I'm about to say. But I had not watched E.T. And I'm sitting with my friend and his wife, and I look at them. She's my friend too. I don't know why I said it like that, but I'm sitting with them. And I think because I met him first and we became friends, and then I met his wife, and I looked at them and I was like, if this freaking alien dies, somebody's getting punched. Like that's just how I deal with it. So if I'm hurting and something's not around anymore, and I actually had lost a cat when I was 13, and I have not, I had one cat since, but the cat that I lost when I was 13, that was tough. I was so close to that damn cat. So see, that's what I do. Like when I am hurting, but instead of the sadness, I feel the anger. So I always just say like, oh, the damn cat. So, yeah, it's like, I still look for that cat out in the field. I still look for that damn cat. Like just admit it, and say it out loud, because having that witness and not feeling alone in that a lot of times is actually enough to release trapped emotions, depending on what the situation is, and just allowing ourselves to feel that grief. So those are what I'm doing, just to recap. So it's all just in one thing. Find your protective mechanisms, catch yourself when they're going in, tell this part of your psyche that I don't need you to protect me this way anymore. I need a new way to do things. Find your form of creativity, your art, and whatever that may be. And lastly, if there is something specifically hard you're going through, don't do it alone. Go find someone, schedule a session with a therapist. You can schedule a session with me. You can find, I'll actually link that below in the show notes. If you want like an emotional release technique, an emotional release therapy, I will leave my booking link in the show notes. You can book with someone like me who does the emotional release techniques. I just call them trauma healing sessions. Just don't go through it alone. That's really important, whether it's at church, it's with someone, a friend, your partner, like whoever that is, just don't go through that alone. So those are, I believe I said 5 things, the 5 things that I am doing right now to navigate this grief after my boy has crossed over the Rainbow Bridge. I really hope this episode was helpful because like I said, I was really inspired to do it because, again, people have good intentions, they mean well, but as far as actually healing from grief, the advice is not productive. And as I said, the only thing that really matters is the thing getting closer to your goal or further away from your goal, and suppressing the grief, trapping the grief is not productive when it comes to healing. So I hope this episode of the Western Hippie was helpful for you. If you found value out of this episode, I would be so grateful if you could rate and review and leave I was going to say a comment. I guess if you're on YouTube, I would absolutely love if you left a comment. But yes, if you're on Spotify or Apple, I would be absolutely honored if you could rate and review. Tell me what you loved about the show. Tell me what you want to see more of the show. And thank you for listening to this episode of the Western Hippie Podcast. Willie, Tank, and myself will talk to you later.